Here with Steve Schrader. Steve is, of course, the CFO of Workhorse. Steve, thank you so much for taking time today.
Thanks for having me.
So, you and I spoke in July, like mid to late July. Why don't you update me on new developments since then? What's changed with the business? Any new announcements that you've had? What has changed for you since then?
Yeah, I think several things. I think we've gotten a handful more of trucks out the door. I think we announced the Hitachi agreement after the July interview as well. And Hitachi's in here for a couple different reasons, doing an operational assessment of our plant and trying to see of going from maybe 5 to 10 a day to 40 or 50. What's the best plan to do that at our facilities? And I think we probably have had, and I can't remember exactly when the time of our interview, but we probably raised more money as well in that time period. So a more recent one, we raised about $200 million of a convertible debenture. And the exchange price on that is about $35 for the stock price to be exchanged into stock. So that $200 million gives us the ability to not only increase production into 2021 at a faster rate, but develop new products like a Class 2 van and refrigeration, or a combination of both of those. And at the same time, get rid of some higher cost debt that we had on the balance sheet as well.
So you mentioned some getting products out the door and some deliveries. Are you still on pace for that guidance? I believe you had guided 300. I want to say 300 deliveries or 400 deliveries for the year. Most of them you said would be delivered in the fourth quarter, which we're of course in right now. So are you still on pace for that guidance?
Well, we got everything in place right now. So we got the labor and the materials are coming in. And from our standpoint, we still have the 3 to 400 that we have out there. And that's our goal. Right now, doing it at two facilities, both the Union City and our Loveland location. So as far as we are going right now, we're good on that.
Let's talk about this contract that you may be aware of, U.S. Postal Service. This is the contract that you've talked about, investors have talked about. I thought we were going to get some sort of decision from the USPS last week or a couple weeks ago. Now they're saying, I guess, by the end of the year. Can you update us there on what you know about the timeline?
Yeah, I think the post office, I mean, the only thing we could talk about is what's public. And the post office, I think, has always said several different times that it'd be by the end of the year.
Okay.
So I think we'll all just kind of see what happens by the end of the year.
Can you just refresh us on what this deal would mean for Workhorse?
Well, the post office is bidding out 165,000 vehicles, so it's a huge fleet opportunity. And I think from our standpoint, it'd be transforming, right? From a standpoint of just now delivering a few vehicles and getting some revenues in, and we have a backlog of about 1,200 orders. But a post office would be 165,000 vehicles over a certain time period too. So it'd be transforming, be a big opportunity for us.
Yeah. Do you expect when they do uh, award the contract, do you expect to be like the only recipient, the only winners, or do you expect to be one of several, or do you have any expectations there?
I don't think we have expectations one way or the other. It's
Okay.
again, we can't comment on it. I think it's up to the post office and what they want to do. And at least publicly, they said they let everybody know by the end of the year.
Got it. So, in the event, hypothetically, that you do get this contract, uh, you would have to produce a lot of trucks, right? Who would be doing that production? Because I know you also have a stake in Lordstown Motors, 10% stake there. So between you and Lordstown, who's actually doing that production there?
I think we have a couple options. We have a Union City, Indiana factory right now that's 265,000 square feet. And that used to do about 60,000 Navistar chassis back in the day. So it certainly has the capacity to do it there. It would maybe need some automation um, from that standpoint. But I think at the same time, we have Lordstown out there as well as a strategic alliance. And Lordstown's a 6 million square foot facility that could, easily accommodate uh, both C series and post office if we chose to kind of do subcontract it out of Lordstown. So again, I think we have options.
So is this a situation where, like, let's say you get the contract awarded on a Thursday, and by like I guess how long between the decision and let's say you get it, how long between then and production start time is that? Like, can you turn around and just start going?
Well, again, I can't comment on what the post office would want to do.
Right.
So I think we'll just have to kind of leave it at that. I think you could probably imagine the post office not going to want a vehicle immediately if they
Okay.
award them. So there would be probably a time frame for whoever wanted to award.
Got it. Got it. And then as far as other orders, other things that Workhorse has out there, aside from the contract, last we talked, you had mentioned a couple of big clients and orders based from UPS and DHL. Are there other big orders out there?
Well, we have about 1,200 back orders right now with UPS and DHL. We're certainly talking to a lot of players at this point in time. I
Okay.
expect more orders by the end of the year, but those are the current orders.
And then, best you can tell, how has COVID sort of impacted your order book?
Yeah, it probably just delayed it, like everybody else. It delayed it. We initially wanted to kind of get orders and manufactured and delivered earlier in the year, and we kind of delayed that, 2 or 3 months, and now we're kind of doing it in the last quarter. So I'm assuming at the same time period, it probably actually also delayed our customers from a standpoint of considering, whether they would order this year or later time period. So everybody has had to deal with it. So not just us.
Yeah. And then I had just read, I guess it was last week or sometime earlier in October, press release announcing a voucher program in New York State for your trucks. And I know you also have one in California. Can you tell us about this voucher program and what other states it could potentially be in?
Right now it's California and New York,
Right.
and they have about they're a little different, obviously, programs, but they have up to 40 to 50,000 per vehicle. That is an opportunity for customers that they're buying that they can apply directly to our purchase price. So it certainly helps speed up orders. I think from that standpoint in those states. I don't know if other states are considering it right now. There's certainly 13 other states that are kind of under the CARB rules that California uses. So eventually, you think maybe those states could also offer vouchers. But there are also states. New York has also thrown out, I think, a $700 million program for infrastructure of actually running that, building out the infrastructure and running it through the utilities. So I think both from a state perspective and a federal perspective, I think politically things are going in the EV favor of encouraging it as much as possible and getting people to use EVs and
Yeah.
buy them.
Yeah. And just speaking of the entire EV industry, what do you make of the fact that the story has been extremely hot, not just with you guys, but there are a lot of other new electric vehicle stocks, investments out there this year. Maybe, Tesla and Neo are like, if those are the established players, there's a dozen new ones that have come to pass this year. What do you make of the fact that we've been talking about electric vehicles for what seems like forever, but this year specifically, the story has gotten really, really hot?
I think it's both things. I think it's from a consumer standpoint, the consumers are asking for it. We're finding fleet owners that are interested in the cost savings that it provides. And I certainly on the passenger side and the pickup truck side too, consumers are asking for it. So I think that's where investors are noting that as well. And that's the new hot sector. So I think they're kind of driving each other. Both people now, investors are kind of asking, certain OEMs, why aren't you doing things in the EV sector and demanding it, and from an environmental standpoint too, because they also invest from a sustainability standpoint. So I think it's driven both by the consumer market and the investment market. From Workhorse's standpoint, I think in comparison to some of the other EV companies out there, I think we look comparison, relatively look pretty good from a standpoint of we're actually manufacturing and delivering right now, and some other of the custom or other of the companies are really just have maybe chalkboard designs that'll do something in 2022 or 2023. So I think it made us look and relatively pretty good. And not only that, I think we also had kind of the drone opportunity and like you said, possibly a post office opportunity too.
What do you make of the fact that Workhorse's stock has been just so volatile this year? It's gone up, it's gone down. Maybe moves were justified, maybe they weren't, maybe the market got ahead of itself, maybe they didn't. But what do you make of just the volatility of your stock? I imagine you would say, you don't look at it, but it's hard not to, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we look at it, but I don't know if we know any more than you. I think it's the EV sector overall. I think it's gone up and it's gone down, and so it it's good being in a hot sector, but it also is good that we're actually at a stage where things that we've done 2 or 3 years are now kind of paying off, where we're actually manufacturing, delivering, hopefully getting new orders. So I think you try to do the best you can. You try to kind of deliver and execute. And if you execute, then I think at the end of the day, the stock takes care of itself.
It definitely seems like the sector has cooled off a little bit here for the past couple months. Do you think that there was just too much excitement over the summer that investors got a little bit over their skis?
It's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell. I think it still is the market in the next 10 years. I think people are going to be buying more EVs. And I think that's what investors are looking at. And so I think it certainly is a trend going forward. Day to day or quarter to quarter, stocks kind of go in and out, industries go in and out, and investments kind of go up and down. So it's hard to kind of tell exactly what the investors are looking at sometimes.
Yeah, and you can't necessarily help it
Yeah.
if you get caught up in being in like the new sector, the new industry. You obviously can't control that. The other side of that coin is it also brings about attention from short sellers and people who are just saying this entire industry is just completely ahead of itself and not where investors value it right now. So, what do you say to the skeptics out there who say that whether it's you or any other company, in this industry, that electric vehicles is, while a great idea, the valuations of these companies, yours included, are just too high for where they should be right now.
Well, I mean, again, it's part of the stock market, right? You have shorts out there that want to make that bet sometimes as well, and it's just you know, I can't tell you whether it's to me, I think it is the way that the industry is going. I think it's where the consumers are going, whether it be fleet customers that we appeal to, last mile delivery, or just consumers overall. So I think it's certainly the way over the next decade. But from quarter to quarter, and whether you're short or long, people are gonna make different bets. I don't know if I can really provide any sort of direction for that.
Yeah. Last we had talked, I believe you had mentioned, of course, part of your technology, aside from the trucks, is the drones. You have some patents for that. Uh, how is that going?
It's going well. From a drone, if you want to use a drone in a long-term commercial business, you need to get FAA certifications. You need to get a type certification and a production certification. So that process takes about 12 to 18 months. So we're starting that process right now and going through that time period. So again, you can do things on an exception basis and a trial and a pilot basis. But if you want to make it a long-term business, you need to get these certifications, and that's the process we're starting right now.
How long of a process is that?
About 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you just started that now.
we're starting that now.
Okay. So we should be hearing any day now, is what you're saying.
Well, you know, good for the FAA is they obviously want to make sure that these drones are safe for everybody from the standpoint of package delivery. And so they make you fly a lot. They make you fly over 400 hours on a lot of different missions. And we're going to be we're going to be doing that. And again, in 12 to 18 months, hopefully we'll get certifications, and then we can actually have a long-term business that we think can be just as lucrative as the truck business.
So how does that work? So FAA says fly this drone from point A to point B, drop this package here, and then you do it.
Well, I believe I don't know if I know, I don't know if they're that specific on what you need to do on the actual testing. I do know that they make you drop, make you fly over 400 hours, which is a lot of flying, you know. Uh, and they certainly have make sure you have the manuals and all the backup and run different tests. So they're pretty specific and just like they are with an airline, you know, of getting a FAA clearance. So it's a long process and we're ready to go through it.
The idea of drones, of course, seems super appealing in a pandemic. I would certainly hope that by the time you get through the FAA process, that we are past this. By which point, I'm not sure if the appeal of if drones will be as appealing, or do you think that's not the case?
I will say that the interest in the pandemic has increased exponentially. So you're right, you know, and people are moving to, or what they're asking for, I guess you should say, is not only that deliveries have increased, but they like to have touchless delivery.
Yeah.
We do believe some of the things that have happened in the pandemic will be long term. But what I will say is that even if some of these things fade away, is I think package delivery makes a lot of sense just from an economical standpoint. So a UPS truck out there right now, it's in fuel maintenance. It costs $1 per mile to drive those trucks. Our truck costs 40 cents a mile, so that's substantially less. A drone can do the same thing for under 4 cents a mile. So the economics of using a drone, you know, basically just having a driver put a package in a little basket, hit a button, and have the driver drive one way and the package go the other way, deliver the package, and come back to the drone or back to the truck certainly makes a lot of sense to the package delivery industry.
So aside from drones, what are the other long-term ramifications for you guys from COVID?
You know, I think long term, it's both businesses. You know, from a standpoint of delivery trucks, it was the fastest growing market in general. It's growing about 15% a year prior to the pandemic, and now I think it's even increased more. So I think it's the delivery truck business and the drone both kind of have lend itself to more deliveries, and that's really kind of what the pandemic, I think, spurred is people staying at home and getting more deliveries.
So is the bottom line for Workhorse right now that you guys are in like show me mode, right? You have the technology, now you need to actually make the trucks. Is that the bottom line for your company?
Yeah, that's the bottom line right now. It's execution, right? We have the truck, we have the drone, we have the truck that we're actually manufacturing and delivering in this quarter. But we have to do it. We have to execute at the end of the day. So, and then if we can build on that from a standpoint of kind of getting the 300 or so out here this quarter, then we can expand on that next year.
You're not going to tell me what your delivery guidance, if you have any, would be for next year, but can you say whether or not you will even give delivery guidance for the next year?
I think we probably will. I mean, I think right now, if we're trying to basically at 100 a month, we'll say, right? In the fourth quarter, the next goal will be how soon can you get to 200 a month, right? And then even beyond that. So can I give you a, a month in 2021 that will be at 200 a month? No, I can't right now. But that's certainly the next goal.
What are the most important numbers that investors need to know? Is it deliveries? Is that the biggest thing, or are there other metrics that you think investors should be closely watching?
Well, I think there's two things. I think when you go from zero to mass production, and this is for any manufacturer, right? First is kind of get the volume up. And the next thing is when's that first gross margin positive month, right? Everybody has to go through it when they're not as efficient as they want to be, or they're not getting the volume discounts that they want. So that's what investors are looking at, I think, for the most part, is can you get to the volume that you need to get to get that first kind of gross margin positive month and then be gross margin profitable.
What would be something that could theoretically stand in the way of your ability to scale that production? Because I obviously am not an engineer. I do not know how hard it is, though I imagine it's quite hard. what is something that could stand in the way of that?
Well, I think like for any manufacturer, it's probably going to be if you had material disruptions, didn't get the material on time. Because I think hiring the labor, you train them and you get them efficient on it, and from an actual assembly standpoint, and think of ours as more sub-assemblies than an assembly line. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think it's probably would be material disruptions possibly would be a possibility.
And then just to wrap up here, Steve, what is the next big catalyst that is on your radar for the company? For investors, it's probably your next earnings report, which I imagine will be in a few weeks, or at the very least, at some point before the end of the year. That date's not announced yet at the time that we're doing this. But what is the next catalyst for you guys as a business? Is it the USPS contract? Is there something else out there?
Well, I think in the short term, it's the getting the volume up. We've talked about the third quarter and the earnings release. We've talked about just getting a handful of trucks out. Our goal was really focused towards the fourth quarter and getting the labor and the materials and everything in place, and the production line and the sub assemblies in place to actually produce more volume. So I think it's hitting the volume that we want to hit as the next catalyst. If the post office makes an award and we're part of that, that's certainly a catalyst. And then moving on to 2021 and getting more orders as well by the end of the year. So I think those are all two or three things to look at from our standpoint.
I'm just curious also, how far out do you feel comfortable projecting things like delivery? I mean, obviously, maybe you'll do it for the whole year, but is this something that you are comfortable projecting out 2 years or anything beyond the 1 year horizon, or do you have to focus on this sort of 1 year at a time?
I think we have to focus on the year in front of us. We have a backlog that we have to deliver. We're starting production right now on that backlog. So I think it's really satisfying that backlog, certainly with the start this quarter and then into 2021. And if we get new orders, we add to that backlog and we can go from there, and maybe we can get a little bit longer term vision from that standpoint. But I think right now it's really just kind of getting the trucks out the door in this fourth quarter.
That's what I got. Steve Schrader is the CFO of Workhorse. Steve, thanks a lot for the time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And remember, Zingers, if you want to keep up with everything on electric vehicles, then go to benzinga.com/electric vehicles, and you can go ahead and stay with everything on the move. And of course, if you want to go ahead and be faster, you can go ahead and profit faster with stock market research with Benzinga Pro. Best part is, right now, you can start a 2-week trial without even using a credit card. So go ahead and click the link and check us out.